Welcome, artists. Today we're going to look at a drawing tutorial that I made you, and your drawing might look something like this when it's done. Okay, boys and girls, today we're going to be starting a lesson that will take you through the next 3 classes, and you're going to be starting to talk about shapes that are concentric and also about color temperatures, warms and cools. So let's back up just a minute and think about what it means for a shape to be concentric. A concentric group of shapes all are stacked and share a center. So if I have a triangle, the triangle outside of that triangle would share the same center, and that triangle would have equal spacing all the way around it from the previous triangle, and they would be stacked, continuing outwards with equal spacing all the way around it. If I have a triangle that does not have equal spacing, or where the center of the triangle is vastly differently located than the center of the other triangles, this shape is not concentric. This shape is concentric. Any shapes can be stacked to be concentric and grow outwards. This could include circles and hearts, triangles, squares, diamonds, rectangles, and stars. So you are going to be starting in your artwork today on creating a group of concentric shapes. Pick one specific shape and start it anywhere that you want on your picture. Your concentric shape could start right here in the middle, or it could start up toward a corner or down toward any bottom corners. So I'm going to start with the shape of a circle. And I'm going to draw this circle about 1 inch across, my start shape, and continuing out from there about a finger's width apart from its next shape. In other words, about the width of my finger from one circle to the next one. None too smushed together, not too close. Our next step will be a little bit easier if they are a little farther apart. You may find that your shapes distort a little bit as you are working outward. That's normal. It might not stay a perfect circle on the biggest circles outward. And pretty soon you are going to run into the edge of your paper. When you run into the edge of your paper, your circle will continue, but it's going to go into what I call la-la land. So a finger's width apart, it continues around. And when it goes here, you're just going to pretend that it comes back. So all of these circles will continue, even if your paper does not. So it's going to come on, then off, back around, and loop back to where it started. And you're going to continue this with your first concentric shape that you chose, filling up your entire paper. And at some point, it might just be a series of straight lines or curves as your shape really starts to close in on your whole sheet of paper, getting filled up all the way to all the corners of what's actually just a rectangular piece of paper. Once you have those all the way filled up, you'll notice my spacing got a little bit wider. It's wider than a finger's width toward the edge. That's okay. It's not perfect. We're going for creative and not perfect. And what we're going to do next is you are going to take your hand and you are going to be laying your hand on top of your paper. And you're going to start to trace around that hand all the way around. Hold your hand pretty still. I'm reaching for the center of my concentric shape. You might be choosing to put your hand somewhere else on your paper, but you want a section of your hand and also a section of your arm, all the way to the edges of your paper. And if it's not quite there, you can pause and you can fill it in. I'll give you just a minute to go ahead and do that. So if your artwork looks something like this, then you are ready to start thinking about color families. warm colors and cool colors. Warm colors are colors that might remind you of fire. None of them contain the color blue. There are shades of reds, oranges, and yellows, and they can include all the tints and shades of those colors. So whether it's a bright red or a light red, a bright orange or a light orange, all of those are warm colors. One way to remember what a cool color is that all cool colors contain blue. So if you needed blue to mix that color, or if it is blue itself, it is a cool color. So if we think about our color wheel, we know that we need blue to mix green, and we know that we need blue to make shades of purple or to make shades of turquoise or lime. And so we know that those are all cool colors. So all cool colors contain blue. You're going to be making a decision when you look at your artwork about where to use your cool and warm colors. And either what's inside your hand is going to be all cool colors, or what's inside your hand is going to be all warm colors. Everything outside of your hand will be totally the opposite. So let me show you what I mean. Start by selecting your material. You could be choosing to use markers, crayons, or colored pencils for this activity, and you can decide whether or not you want to work in a pattern. I'm going to choose these 3 cool colors, and I'm going to begin by making my hand and my arm the part that's cool colored, which means that I am outside of my hand and arm going to be using warm colors. So inside my hand and arm, I think that I'll start a pattern, and I'm going to start it right up here in the fingers. And I'm going to do an ABC pattern because I've got 3 colors. So I'm going to say if this is my A, B, C, then I know that this next section is going to be A. Let's talk about the ups and downs of some of the different material options that you might choose, because like I said, you might choose markers, crayons, or colored pencils. So the nice thing about markers is that they're really bright. They're also totally not erasable. So if you make a mistake, in all likelihood, it will stay. That's not a big deal because you're a flexible thinker and you can overcome mistakes, but it will be there. If you're working in crayon, it's pretty quick. The colors are nice and bright. The colors are hard to fix. Again, you cannot erase crayon. So the colors will stay if you made a mistake. However, if you work in colored pencil, you can erase a little bit. They're a little bit lighter, not as vibrant, but maybe that's better for you because you can layer them more easily than if you were working in marker or crayon. And also they're a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more erasable. And I'm going to continue that pattern, that ABC, ABC pattern, all the way down my hand. Now at this point, you're going to be looking at this and trying to figure out whether or not everything that you see and that you're coloring is inside of your hand. So if there is a section that is not inside of your hand, you are not going to color it a cool color. So right here between the fingers, this is all going to be warm, and I have this cool colored hand. It looks like it's going to be reaching into sort of a, maybe this is a puddle with ripples, into this warm water. And I'm going to continue that pattern all the way down my arm and my hand until I get to the end. And then I'm going to choose the next color in my pattern. You might be choosing not to do a pattern, and that's just fine. Or you might be choosing to do a pattern that's a little more complex or sophisticated than mine, than an ABC pattern, and that's fine too. Make sure that you use your best coloring skills, good craftsmanship. Take your time on this. I've given you 3 classes to work on this, so the quality of the work that you're going to do is going to reflect that it has taken you 3 classes to work on this. If a color is in the same ring as another part of the hand, that's one way to know that they'll be the same color. So here, all the cool colors that are inside this ring of my concentric circle are all going to be turquoise, which means that it's easy to check if you forgot a spot. For example, I see right here that I forgot the tip of my thumb, and since it's in the same ring as this part of my hand, I'm going to go back and get my purple because that's the color that it's going to be. And I'm going to continue this all the way down my hand. When I'm wondering if it's time to work on the next section, one thing I should do is stop and ask myself if this is my best work. And right now, when I look over this artwork, I can see some places that my craftsmanship is maybe a little bit not its best because perhaps I was rushing. And I can see that in places that the lines look kind of scribbly, or in places where I have a lot of white showing. And I can go back and take my time and make that my best work before I move on to the outside part. Now in the outside part, I have to make another decision about, since my inside is an ABC pattern, am I going to continue my ABC pattern with 3 different warm colors, or am I going to change what's my warm color pattern outside of it, or am I going to have no pattern at all within my warm colors? And I'm going to use warm colors out there because they are really sort of the opposite color family to these cool colors, and it's going to make my cool colors, which right now are pretty faint, pretty pastel, it's going to help them really pop a little bit more. So starting in the center, I'm going to think about what colors do I want to have. Maybe I'll try out this bright coral color and maybe a pumpkin-y kind of an orange, and I might try out this pink. And I'm going to continue my ABC pattern that I did before, but again, you can choose if you're going to change it to an AB pattern or an AABB pattern, or whether or not you're going to have a pattern at all to your warm colors. And since I'm going to do an ABC pattern, I can take this ABC pattern and I can continue to check through my work as I'm working to see where my next layer of pink would go. Since I have pink on the center, I can count outward A, B, C, and coming back to A again, and I can see that in this section that this is going to be all pink all the way around. When I continue all the way around there and finish all of those sections that are my A sections, I'm going to move to my next color and repeat. Again, this is not a race. You're going to be taking 3 classes to work on this project. So please make sure to take your time and do your best work. I'll show you what my work looks like when it's done.